Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCraft Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor, the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing. Also brought to you by Illumnitical, the think tank of the future. The Sweet Summits by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, now on Amazon, and Hayitan Music. Check out our latest at hayitanmusic.com. We're here with a terrific lady who's a performing singer, songwriter, currently in New York City, born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia. She served as visual art critic, curator, and painter, and began her vintage garment rental company in 23. We'll talk more about that. She began her music career at 8, left at 18 due to personal trauma, and she's back with some new releases. And she's lived in Montana, moved to New York City in 2015, and we'll talk about her latest release, The Gospel of Getting Free, featuring Home at Last, The Siren title track, and plus number of other works like Old Kentucky Light and more. Live, ladies and gentlemen, at Plus Studios in beautiful downtown New York City, the amazing performing singer, songwriter, currently in New York City, born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia, with the gospel of getting free, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Lara Taubman. Lara, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
What's great to have you on board, Lara. So you're a performing singer-songwriter currently in New York
Yeah.
City. You were born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia. You served
hmm
as a visual art critic, curator, and painter. You began a
Yeah.
vintage garment rental company back in 23, which is called
Yeah.
Lara Springs Vintage. And you also began your music career at 8. You left at 18 due to personal trauma. You lived in Montana, moved to New York in 2015. You have some releases like Old Kentucky Light, Darkness Before the Dawn, and also Silver Lining, Revelation, Blind Spot, and plus you got the new release, The Gospel of Getting Free. And before getting on, Laura, tell us how you first got started.
Well, like you said, I opened my mouth one day when I was 8 years old and started singing. And it felt like that was the only time people really heard me. And then when I was 18, I had had some things happen to me, and I was just like, I just started painting.
Ooh.
That's what I studied in school. And that sort of evolved into becoming a writer. I was always a writer. So I started writing about art and curating art shows. And that, I lived in New York City as a young kid. And then that went on for about, I don't know, 25 years.
Wow.
And then when I was in Montana, I was there, I was married, I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I suddenly just heard this voice that said, if you don't start making something that, because I had stopped doing my visual artwork, and if you don't start singing again, you're really going to regret it on your deathbed. And so I went and got a guitar, and I said, well, I don't know how to write a good song, but I know what they sound like. And,
Right.
and,
Yeah. Three chords. Old
right.
boy, man, book, whatever it is, or a little bit of beer, whiskey. That's very typical.
Right, and I never had a hard time telling the truth. So, so, so that's where it all started. And then in 2016, I had been living outside of New York City for many years,
Okay.
and I just moved back to New York City, left my marriage, and came back here, and started just started writing songs and going to workshops and going to open mics. And then that evolved into meeting my first producer, Hugh Christopher Brown, and making my album Revelation. And then I met my second producer in 2021, Stephen Williams and Paul Frazier, and they both co-produced the album, Old Kentucky Light. And then Stephen Williams produced this last album, The Gospel of Getting Free, this year that came out. And yeah, and then I made an EP in between then, Blind Spot, that Steve also produced. And yeah, the rest is history. And now I'm so happy in this vocation of mine right now. I don't know if you call it a vocation, but this is the best job I ever had. I love to sing. Singing has made me a truly healthy person. And I'm finally doing what I was put here as Lara Taubman to do, which
hmm
is make
Maybe,
music.
maybe think of the Geico commercial. If you love what you're doing, it's not a job. I can relate to that.
Right, probably something you can relate to for sure.
hmm And
Yeah.
it was at one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you do in the rest of your career.
Say that last part again.
What was that one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you're doing for the rest of your career?
Ooh, uh, that's a good question. You know, I think it was when I heard that voice that said, you know, you've been making things your whole life and you probably have 30 good years left. If you don't start doing this now, if you don't start singing again, because I always knew that singing in the car, singing in the shower, that I was missing something if I wasn't doing it in public. And it just said to me, you've got to do this, or it's going to be rough for you. And so, and I'd been denying that to myself. And so it was when I said, okay, in that moment, it was sort of one of those sort of formative moments that instead of going left that day, I went right. And literally, it took months. My whole life had changed. And music has, and singing has just, making it has, I mean, I've always loved music, but making it, my whole world has literally, I haven't had to go, I never had to go look for my producers. I never had to, it just, as I just kept doing it, things just started coming to me. So I think it was that moment when I was cleaning the house one day when that voice came to me.
Cleaning house, that always seems to happen. It's like, it'd be like
Yeah.
cleaning my car, the studio, whatever else. Like cleaning always happens, it seems like. So,
It's a great time to have things, realize things and sort things out.
hmm and certainly does as well, too. And who are some of your favorite singers, songwriters, and musicians growing up?
Oh, well, growing up, you know, I really was all around just, you know, the 70s classic rock. My brother just forced it down my throat, and he was across the hall from me, and he was hell-bent on making sure I had good musical taste. Would not let me venture off into disco, which is where I really wanted to go, and still love, of course, disco's amazing music. But you know, I mean, it was all that music that was just coming out, you know, Springsteen, the Stones, the Beatles.
hmm
I mean, the whole menu. The women that you know, the Joni Mitchells, Carole King, all those albums, as they came out, they were just all around me. I didn't even, you know, Laura Nyro on the radio, you know, Crosby, Stills and Nash, all this, it was just a part of the world I grew up in. But then my mother used to be a concert pianist. My father was obsessed with classical music and opera.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, in coal country, where, you know, the Carter, that was a region of the world that people like Doc Watson and the Carter family made their music. And that's just a very special region of the world for music. And that was all around me. And it really was a powerful realization when I started making music to see like, oh my God, this is where I'm from, you know, and realizing that it really was, all that music had gotten into me. And I think the first three musicians that I really started to write with, who I really started to learn from, that I worked with when I got out of bed every morning on how to write a song, how to play a song, were Steve Earle, Guy Clark, and Townes Van Zandt. And they really sort of guided me. And now it's, you know, it's a wider girth of musicians, but they really, it took me into the blues, and it took me into old time music from Virginia, you know, which is really important to me. You might not hear it in the music, but in a very fundamental way, it's a big part of what feeds me as a singer-songwriter.
And certainly does as well, too. And of course, going from Roanoke to Montana to New York City, we'll find out more on the journey with Lara Taubman, especially with the gospel of getting free. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios. Visit online at SoundWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. SoundWeb Studios is the answer. SoundWeb Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon, and paperback, and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews. In Evil Evan enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Jordan Cassidy, Forge Riley, and Maneos. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also coming soon to Amazon.com, Missing 2, double the suspense, double the action, coming soon to Amazon as well. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illumniptical, the think tank of the future that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, creating a method to construct a renewable generator. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system, generating more energy internally than it needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes, power grids, phones, and laptops. This power source is renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illumniptical. That's ELLUMENIPTICAL.com today. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote in his time as a shepherd, where it all started. In his complicated yet turbulent relationship with King Saul, it's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also brought to you by Hi-Tan Music, featuring the smash hit Baby Come Back and new music coming soon. Listen for the details at hightanmusic.com. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Take us with you wherever you go on 40 podcast platforms, heard in 100 countries. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And if you want more information, send me an email to the Mike Wagner Show at gmail.com. And for more great gift ideas, books, and more, Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today and support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. You'll hear the amazing performing singer-songwriter currently in New York City, born and raised in Roanoke, Virginia, Lara Taubman, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about your latest, the gospel of getting free, tell us about your journey going from Roanoke to Montana and to New York.
Well, it actually started where I went from, I went to Bennington College in Vermont, and after I went there, I moved to New York City to become a visual artist, and that sort of kept transforming as it does with a kid in their 20s. And I went to I found myself suddenly in graduate school studying cultural studies at NYU. And the professor who I was there to study with told me that, recommended that I just take it to art history. And that's inevitably where it ended up. And I also, for various reasons, in my 30s, moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Then I moved to Los Angeles, California to get married, and did a lot of visual art work there. And I was working all over the world as an independent curator and artist. Arts writer, and was writing, for all the journals and catalog essays and so forth. And then me and my ex-husband, we moved to Montana. We just thought it was a really beautiful place to be, and we could do our work from there. And I was there for about 3.5, 4 years, and it was maybe a little more. More, 4 or 5 years. And it was a really beautiful place to be, really nice. And I left there in 2016 and moved back. I was very happy to come back to New York City. New York City is the way I was people who educated me to be in the creative process and to be an artist. They were all from New York City. And so it really is the creative home of my heart. So coming back here felt very, very good. And I felt like I'd been on this long journey, and now I could come home finally and do the thing I was put here to do, which is make music.
And you also have your own vintage garment rental company as well, too. You just started.
Yes, I do, and I've always, it's a wonderful extension of my love of design and beautiful things. My mother, when I was a child, was an image consultant,
Oh,
and
wow.
so
Okay.
he sort of gave me that love of beautiful clothes and wearing beautiful things and appreciating beautiful things. And I didn't even mean to, which is how my favorite collections come into being. Is I just collected clothes my whole life, and suddenly a couple years ago, I had a lull in my schedule, and I was like, well, and I just realized I had clothes, and I'm in a city filled with stylists who are looking for clothes to rent for their photo shoots,
Oh, okay.
etc., and celebrities and people who need clothes for events and so on. And you know, fast fashion is not in anymore, and there's the whole thing about being eco-conscious with fashion, and you know, so it was really a perfect time. People are really looking for vintage clothing right now. It's a really hot thing, and it feels great. It's been a really gratifying feeling to see my things on. It's mostly been musicians. I had a young gal named Chelsea Cutler who was on the Jimmy Kimmel Show last fall wearing some of my things, and that was a lot of fun. So it's a great feeling.
And who was your favorite designers back in the day, or favorite stylists and all that?
Oh, God. My favorite designers. Well, I think, the original Coco Chanel is a fascinating woman and designer, but I think the most important designer of the last like 60 years is Yves Saint Laurent. Without him, I wouldn't be wearing this military green T-shirt, or like, women wouldn't be wearing pants the same way we wear pants. Um, you know, Leisure wear wouldn't look like it looks. And I mean, he was hugely influential for everybody, and especially for me. I think he's probably my favorite designer. But there are many. I mean, there are so many to love. It's just like, I don't know, where do I begin?
Right. And plus, you also have your extension as well, too. And of course, you're more known for being like the gospel getting free and, certain releases Old Kentucky Light, Darkness Before Dawn, and of course, Silver Lining, and plus a
Yeah.
Revelation, Blind Spot. And tell us more about those releases, especially the album and other cuts and everything.
Yeah, well, the latest album, I mean, it's been a beautiful process of starting out with the guitar and writing songs like that, and learning how to write a song and how to sing a song so that you can be the most generous when you're performing it, whether you're recording or you're live. And that's really my goal when I make any song, is, from the writing of it until the presentation of it, to the point of obsession. And so Revelation is a real, is it sounds like a first album, but I was very happy with how it sounded, and I still am. But you grow from the first album, hopefully.
Right. That's common sense. That's understandable.
Yeah, and Old Kentucky Light. I really loved that album for many reasons. I started co-writing with people and learned a great deal from doing that. I co-wrote with a guy named Walter Parks, actually on the title track "Old Kentucky Light" on that, and that arpeggiated guitar. Walter is an incredible singer-songwriter in his own right. But he was also Richie Havens' sideman for the last 10 years of his life.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and he's just, not to plug him here on my plug, but he's really worth going and
Give
checking
credit
him
where
out.
it's due, basically. Give credit. So,
Oh, well, he's a great friend and a great musician, and definitely worth checking out. And he really has helped kind of elevate my work, to, with his playing. It's just, and his sensibilities. And then And, you know, that song, Old Kentucky Light, had a lot of personal, it was about a woman who, as she's dying, is remembering her life, and how beautiful her life was. And she's moving into, you know, she's old, it's time for her to die. She dies a natural death, but it's this beautiful transformation. Um, and and there are a lot of very personal songs on that album. The song Grace was about my grandmother's garden when I was growing up as a child. And Darkness Before the Dawn is a song about just that it's darkest before the dawn. You know, I had to live through a lot of personal trauma and survive it. And one of the things I always noticed that got me through was this is a really dark time, but you know that it will get brighter, and it always gets darkest before the dawn. And that's what that meant a lot for me to write that song.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gospel of getting free, you know, that album, that title track, that's what it's about. It's about, I finally am starting to get my feet under me and get free. I mean, get free in myself, get free in my creative process, get free in my mind and my heart, and start to, you know, live my life instead of just survive my life. And that's been an incredible experience. So the title track, The Gospel of Getting Free, is about a young boy who has these magical powers, and I've always loved the Holy Grail stories, and so he's taken by these evil forces who realize he has these talents, and they set him off to go find the Grail, and he finds it, but he finds it within himself. And then the idea is that he goes back to them and says, you know, it's it within you, and he's sacrificed because they think he's lying. And you know, I really loved writing that story. I love writing these long ballads about stories, but then, you know, like the song you're going to play today, The Siren, is sort of is a song that's sort of more from my past of, you know, dealing with expectations and not being able to live up to them, conflicts between what's outside of you and what's really calling to you. And that's what and I wrote that one with Walter Parks. I also co-wrote on The Gospel of Getting Free with two other writers, Teddy Kumpel and Osgold Buck, and Osgold and I wrote The Gospel of Getting Free together, and he's just a wonderful musician and writer and producer in his own right, as is Teddy. Teddy Kumpel is too.
Right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, and Teddy and I wrote Sugar and Reason I Was Born together.
Okay. And you also have a couple of releases as well, too. We'll talk more about that in The Gospel of Getting Free with Lara Taubman. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundWeb Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's Missing, also brought by Elam Nipaguli, Think Tank of the Future, The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David on Amazon, and High Music. Check our latest at hightimemusic.com. We'll be back with multi-talented Lara Taubman of The Gospel of Getting Free after this time up. We're back in multi-talented Lara Taubman of The Gospel of Getting Free here on the Mike Wagner Show. And you covered a lot of ground on this one, and just a couple more tracks. You've got Home at Last and also Assyrian King, and tell us more about those.
Well, Home at Last I wrote with Teddy Kumpel, and that song is it's a family story. Excuse me. It's a family story about my mother's side of the family who had to flee the Soviets in the 40s and sought asylum in another country. And you know, in my mother's case, thank God, she had a happy ending and eventually grew up and met my father, and she immigrated to the United States, and
Nice.
here I am, you know. But that story, I wanted to make that story one that was, you know, when that story does not end well, and it doesn't end well so many times. And I was really struck by world events when I wrote that, and just heartbroken by them. And that's what that story. So it was mostly inspired. My mother was when they were fleeing, they were literally on a train in the middle of the night trying to get out of Bulgaria
Wow.
by pretending that they were going on a vacation to
Hmm.
Italy, and the guards came in the middle of the night into their train cabin asking for their papers. This must have been around 1948,
Oh,
maybe.
wow.
Yeah, and so they gave them their papers, and then one of the things they would ask you is, do you have any valuables on you? Because they just try to take anything from you. And my mother, who was 12 years old at the time and has balls of steel, I must say. She's never been any different. She had a little gold ring that, was hers, and she was so defiant. She took the gold ring off and hid it in that piece of rubber around a train window. It's kind of pulls back, and you can,
Hmm.
she hid it in that rubber thing so the guard couldn't find it. And in the first verse, I sort of shifted around for the song, but the guard was big and strong, determined not to lose. Or she said she had a gold ring she couldn't bear to lose. She hid it in the torn sole of her shoe. The guard was big and strong, determined not to lose, but he was blind to her courageous ruse. And then in the song, she takes that ring and gives it to her daughter, and so stuff like that, those fascinating little details that happen in life that, I love putting those into songs and into stories. I think it's just, you know, very interesting. And she could have died for that. She could have been taken, and something in her just told her that it was the right thing to do.
Oh my gosh, that was courageous right there. So courageous. And
Yeah.
if there's other songs we have not covered, here, tell us more about those and what inspired to write them.
Yeah, well, you had mentioned Assyrian King, which I wrote with Oscar Buck, and that story was, that was inspired. It's just one of those stories. I had had a really kind of difficult interaction with somebody, and those words came, with the man who was kind of putting these thoughts into my head. He had one of these ancient faces. Sometimes people have faces from civilizations from thousands of years
Right.
ago.
Thousands and thousands. You see in paintings and all that. Right. Uh-huh.
Right. And that was what I heard when I was standing there in the room. I was in a workshop or something with a bunch of other people, and that was the line I heard: with the face of an Assyrian king, strings of rings around her head. You kept looking at me to smile, put your visions in my head. And yeah, so I just, and then the next verse with the face of I was just making shit up. Sorry. But I often like to refer to myself in my songs, and with the face of a Sumerian queen. I was born to sing, given over to the slaughter before I was a daughter, and which is very much what I feel my story is. That I feel like I was put here to go through difficult things so that I could turn around, overcome them, turn around, and bring music to people, to let it heal people the way that music has always healed me. And that I could do the favor, if I could make good enough music, that I could return the favor to an audience.
Mm-hmm. He's doing a great job of that as well, too, Laura.
Oh, thank you.
And where can we find all your music at?
I'm on all the streaming platforms. You can also go to my website. You can buy CDs on my website. You can, I'm on Spotify, iTunes. You can go to Instagram, follow me if you're in the area. You can come see me play. I have an album release party, in Brooklyn on this Friday, the September 20th at Jalopy Theater in Brooklyn. And sometimes I do small tours. And I'm working on my next EP this fall, which I'm will be produced by Oscar Buck, and I'm co-writing with an incredible pianist, Jeff Franzel. And that's it. If you check my Instagram, my Facebook, you'll see everything I do. I post right there.
And what's your website?
Lara Taubman, LARATAUBMAN.com.
All right, well, certainly check that out with the amazing multi-talented Lara Taubman of the Gospel Getting Free here on the Mike Wagner Show. And just a few more things. What else can we expect in 2024 and going into 2025 besides your EP?
More music, more. I mean, I feel like I'm just, with the third album, I feel like I'm just starting to get my feet under me creatively, and I'm starting, like, my vision is starting to become more articulate, and my creative vision. And I'm working with Oscar Buck and some other people to produce, and I'm learning Ableton Live, which is just about sounds to me and putting weird things together that maybe don't look like they could go together, stuff like that. I'm just going to keep, performing and writing. That's what I do. I just create stuff, and it's I make it for people to hear and enjoy and help them feel better or just happy.
And certainly doing a great job. We're looking forward to what you got. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Well, a lot, but I mean, right now, the people I've been listening to a lot are Laurie Anderson is a huge influence on me, especially her album from 2010, Homeland. Patti Smith, Howlin' Wolf is a huge influence on me vocally. Who else? I was just looking at this. Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway. Many people hear Joni Mitchell in my work, though I'm not thinking about her when I write, but I can hear the influence. I sound a lot like Laura Nyro because my mom was playing that on the radio when she was driving me around when I was a kid. Linda Ronstadt is a big one. And then, like I said, Steve Earle was huge, and Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark were huge influences on me as a writer, and Bob Dylan, of course, and Leonard Cohen, huge influence on me.
A lot of them as well, too, which is great. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
To anybody?
Yes.
Don't give in to the darkness. Just know that, if the sun comes up, yours will come up too. You just got to keep going. Just keep going. It's going to work out,
Right, and that's very important to remember in times like these. With the amazing multi-talented Lara Taubman of the Gospel of Getting Free here on the Mike Wagner Show. Lara, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'll have you back. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your music?
So you can go to Spotify, iTunes. You can buy CDs. I'll mail them to you personally with a nice little note. If you go to my website, you can get all 3 of my albums. I've also got the first 2 on vinyl. You can buy those there. I've also got t-shirts for the second album. You can buy those on my website, larataubman.com. And you can find out what I'm doing all the time on Instagram and Facebook.
And what's your website again?
larataubman.com.
We will certainly check that out. Once again, Lara, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. We wish all the best. And Lara, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
You too. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. It means a lot to be in your show.